So if you examine the data that is in the response, you'll find that this data is a text. Even though the array here, the type of data here is an array and then objects. It's an array of objects. But here in our case, it's a text. It's a text. You can only copy it like this because it's a text. It's not an array. So why is that? The first question is why is that, and the second question is how can we convert it from text to array? Because if we convert it to an array, we will be able to access each single object, and we will be able to display this data, or even store it in a file, or manipulate data. Basically, manipulate data. So why is that? The first answer is that in AJAX, the goal is not to get the data in a specific form. The goal is to get the data and then store it in as a text. It doesn't matter what type of data. It can be an array, it can be an object, it can be a number, it can be a string, it doesn't matter. But what matters is that we have the data. So the goal of AJAX is to get you the data. And you are responsible for converting that data. So how can you convert that data from text? Here, data is text or is string. So we need to convert. Here I'm gonna say convert string to JSON, because the data basically is an array of objects. It's an array of objects, or in other words, it's just JSON. This is called JSON. This is called a JSON array. So it's JSON. So how can we convert this from string to JSON? Well, it's very simple. We need to use the JSON interface, and then dot, and then parse. This parse method parses the JSON string into actual JSON. So this parse is going to take the HTTP request dot response text. That's it. This is going to convert the string into JSON. And then I'm going to store it first in a variable called, let me create a global variable now. Let me create here a global variable. I'm going to say JSON response. Let me just say JSON small letter, and then response. And then here I'm going to say JSON response is going to be equal to this. And finally, I'm going to display it in the console. Console.log, and then I'm going to display the JSON response. And let me show you the difference now between the actual response text and the response text that has been converted into JSON. Let me click on File and then Save All, and let's now test. Now in the browser, let me first refresh and show you what's going to happen. First, it's going to say we have the data, and then in the response, guess what? First, we have the data as text, as string, and then we have the data as JSON. As you can see, this is now JSON. It displays the data as JSON. It's an array of objects, object 1, and then object 2, and then object 3, and then 4, 5, 6, etc. Where each object represents one of these objects, and each object has properties such as user ID, title, and body. And that way, after converting the text into JSON, that way we will be able to access each single object and manipulate it or use it for displaying it to users, or even store it in some location.